high above Singapore's shimmering skyline, on the 68th floor of Tan Innovation's headquarters. The city sprawled beneath like a tapestry of light, its neon veins pulsing through the humid night. Victor Tan, the tech tycoon whose name adorned the tower, reclined in a leather chair that cost more than most people's annual rent, his $50,000 Audemars Piguet watch glinting as it caught the glow of a crystal chandelier. The office was a monument to his success. Rosewood panels carved with intricate patterns, a jade sculpture of a dragon coiled on a pedestal worth a small house, and a carpet so lush it seemed to swallow sound itself, muffling even the boldest footsteps. Victor's presence filled the room like a storm cloud, imposing, unyielding, his dark eyes scanning the space with the assurance of a man who believed he owned not just the tower but the very air within it. His voice, sharp and clipped, sliced through the silence as he pressed a button on his sleek, obsidian intercom. "Send them in," he said, the words carrying an edge of impatience, as if the act of waiting was beneath him. The glass doors slid open with a whisper, revealing Noor, a security guard in a navy uniform pressed to perfection, her badge gleaming under a spotlight. She pushed a utility cart, its wheels silent on the thick carpet, her movements practiced and precise after a decade of patrolling these halls. Beside her walked her daughter, Aisha, a 13-year-old Malay girl, her slight frame weighed down by a faded backpack, its straps frayed but clean, her shoes polished to a mirror shine that reflected the office's opulence. Aisha's eyes, sharp and curious, swept the room, taking in the details her mother had described in hushed tones over countless dinners: the dragon's sculpture, the floor-to-ceiling windows framing Marina Bay, the paintings that cost more than their flat in Jurong. For 10 years, Noor had guarded this space, her footsteps echoing in empty corridors at dawn, but she had never been invited to linger, never allowed to touch the world she protected. Aisha, though, saw it now, measuring the distance between her mother's labor and the man who profited from it. Victor rose from his chair, circling them slowly, his tailored suit moving like liquid silk. His gaze lingered on Noor, then shifted to Aisha, a smirk curling his lips. "Noor, is it? 10 years patrolling my floors, right?" he asked, his tone a mix of curiosity and condescension. Noor nodded, her voice steady despite the weight of his stare. "Yes, sir. 10 years." Victor's laugh was cold, metallic, echoing off the rosewood walls like a coin dropped on marble. 10 years. And what's your education? Secondary school? That's all?" Noor's jaw tightened, but she answered calmly, "Yes, sir. Secondary." The laugh came again, sharper this time, cutting through the air. "Only that? And this must be your girl, dreaming big in a place like this?" His eyes flicked to Aisha, his words dripping with mockery. "This isn't where people like you aim high, little one. Not with your background." The words landed like a slap, their venom cloaked in velvet, a casual cruelty that assumed its target would bend. Noor's shoulders stiffened, but she lowered her head, a gesture honed by years of making herself small to survive in this tower, where every polished surface seemed to absorb the presence of workers like her. Aisha, however, stood taller, her chin lifting, her dark eyes meeting Victor's without flinching. "I speak 9 languages fluently," she said, her voice clear as a bell, each syllable ringing with a confidence that seemed to shift the room's gravity. Victor's laugh returned, louder now, a harsh bark that bounced off the glass walls. 9 languages? A public school kid from Jurong? Don't waste my time, girl." He gestured toward a glass case in the corner, where a rare artifact lay, a bamboo scroll, its surface etched with scripts from centuries past, their lines curling like rivers across time. "I bought this at an auction in London," he said, his voice smug. "Cost me a fortune. Top linguists from Oxbridge and Nuss couldn't crack it. Classical, Tamil, Arabic, Mandarin, Old Javanese, Sanskrit, Thai, Persian, Khmer, and Pali. A linguistic labyrinth, they called it. Think you can read it, little one? Go ahead, Impress me." The challenge hung in the air, heavy with his certainty that she would fail. Noor's hands tightened on the cart's handle, her knuckles paling, her breath shallow with a mother's fear, not of her daughter's ability, but of the cost of defying a man like Victor. Aisha stepped forward, her sneakers silent on the carpet, her gaze locked on the scroll. She didn't rush, her fingers hovering above the delicate bamboo as if greeting an old friend. Her lips moved silently, tracing the scripts, her mind weaving through languages like threads in a tapestry. Then, in a voice steady as stone, she began. Tamil flowed first, its syllables precise and melodic, each word a brushstroke painting a story of ancient wisdom. Arabic followed, its cadence like a desert wind, curling and graceful. Mandarin came next, sharp and rhythmic, its tones slicing through the silence. Old Javanese emerged, its sounds soft yet deliberate, each phrase a step across forgotten kingdoms. Sanskrit rolled out, heavy with the weight of sacred texts, followed by Thai, its lilt like a temple bell. Persian wove in, poetic and flowing, then Khmer, its edges crisp, and finally Pali, the language of ancient monks, its rhythm grounding the room. Aisha's translations wove the artifact's message into a single thread. Wisdom lies not in gold or titles, but in seeing the worth of every soul, in lifting the humble to stand as equals. The air grew heavy, the hum of the air conditioning now a taut wire stretched across the room. Victor's smirk had vanished, his jaw tightening, his face flushing as if the room had suddenly grown too small for his ego. "How?" he demanded, his voice quieter now, almost a whisper, as if he feared the answer. Aisha met his gaze, unflinching. "The community center near our flat offers free classes. Mr. Ravi, who taught Tamil literature in Chennai before he lost his visa, teaches on Mondays. Miss Lin, a retired diplomat from Beijing, covers Mandarin on Wednesdays. Mr. Hassan, a refugee scholar from Damascus, teaches Arabic and Persian on Fridays. They're not rich, but they're brilliant. I learned from them, from library books, from free apps on my phone. Anyone can learn with respect and access." Noor's eyes glistened, pride breaking through the armor she'd worn for a decade, her daughter's words a light piercing the shadows of her unseen labor. Victor crossed his arms, his posture defensive, his mind grappling with the impossibility before him. "Public school kids don't do this," he said, his voice tight. "Prove it. List the languages." Aisha raised. The community center in Jurong buzzed with the kind of energy that only comes from a place where dreams are stitched together from scraps of hope and hard work. Its concrete walls, scuffed and faded, were lined with posters advertising free coding workshops, language classes, and robotics demos, their bright colors clashing with the fluorescent lights overhead. Outside, the humid Singapore evening pressed against the windows. But inside, the air crackled with voices, children laughing, adults murmuring, the soft clack of keyboards blending with the hum of a 3D printer in the corner. At the heart of it all stood Aisha, 13 years old, her faded backpack slung over one shoulder, her navy hoodie tied loosely around her waist. She stood on a low platform, addressing a crowd of hawkers, students, retirees, and service workers packed into the room for the first-ever Jurong Tech Fair, a project she'd convinced Victor Tan, the tech tycoon, to fund after their confrontation on the 68th floor of Tan Innovations. "Today, we code, we communicate, we create," Aisha said, her voice steady and clear, cutting through the chatter like a lighthouse beam. The tables around her were a mosaic of ingenuity. A solar-powered lamp built by a cleaner's son, its wires meticulously soldered. An app for tracking bus schedules coded by a retiree with calloused hands. A multilingual chatbot Aisha had crafted herself, its interface glowing on a borrowed laptop. At the back of the room, Victor sat on a plastic chair, his usual tailored suit replaced by a plain polo shirt. A notebook open to Tamil phrases scrawled in his uneven handwriting. He was no longer the untouchable CEO but a student, stumbling over the word vanakkam as Aisha corrected him with a patient nod. "Push the second syllable," she said, her tone firm but kind. Again, Victor tried, his voice clumsy, and a nearby kid giggled. For once, Victor didn't bristle. He smiled, a faint crack in his polished facade. The fair was Aisha's vision brought to life, a direct challenge to Victor's worldview after she'd stunned him with her translation of the ancient bamboo scroll. She'd demanded he use his wealth to open doors, not build walls, and he'd agreed to fund this event. Free coding and language workshops taught by volunteers like Mr. Ravi, a former Tamil professor, Miss Lin, a retired diplomat, and even a few TAN Innovations engineers who'd been skeptical but curious. The crowd reflected Singapore's mosaic Malay hawkers, Chinese drivers, Indian cleaners, Tamil students, all drawn by the promise of skills once reserved for the elite. Aisha moved between tables like a conductor, explaining Python loops to a grandmother in Mandarin, debugging an Arduino circuit with a teen in Malay, and teaching a hawker to tweak a website in English. Her greetings shifted seamlessly: Tamil, Nandri, Arabic, Shukran, Thai, Kob Hun, each word making a stranger feel seen. The room pulsed with possibility, the kind that thrives not in glass towers but in places where people dare to learn, despite being told they shouldn't. Victor watched, his notebook filling with Tamil verbs, his fingers more accustomed to signing million-dollar deals than conjugating po to go. His peers at the Summit Club, Singapore's enclave of business elites, had mocked him over whiskey and cigars. "Victor's playing charity to dodge taxes," one sneered. "Soft skills won't beat Shanghai." But here, amid the chatter of code and the glow of screens, Victor saw something his boardroom had never shown him: raw potential, unshackled by wealth or status. Aisha approached, handing him a Raspberry Pi, its wires tangled like a puzzle. "Try this," she said. "Code a light to blink. Start with a loop." Victor's fingers fumbled, his ego prickling as the code failed to run. Aisha didn't laugh. "Mistakes are rungs on a ladder. Fix the syntax here." She pointed to a missing semicolon. Victor typed, and when the light blinked green, a kid at the next table clapped. Victor grinned, a rare moment of unguarded joy, and scribbled Nandri in his notebook. The fair wasn't just a showcase, it was a rebellion against the idea that talent belongs only to those with degrees or deep pockets. Aisha had insisted on inclusivity. No entry fees, no prerequisites, just a willingness to learn. A cleaner named Priya, barely 15, displayed an app she'd built to translate hawker menus into multiple languages, her eyes bright with pride. A retiree, Mr. Go, showed a bus tracking app he'd coded after years of driving routes himself. Aisha's own chatbot, running on a cracked laptop, translated live conversations, switching between Tamil, Mandarin, and English with a fluidity that made the crowd gasp. But then, a commotion broke the hum of excitement. Priya's display was defaced. Black markers scrawled across her poster. "Stay in your lane." No slurs. But the message was clear, a jab at her status, her ambition, her existence in this space. The room hushed, eyes turning to Aisha. She took a deep breath, her sneakers squeaking as she stepped forward. "We clean it," she said, her voice calm but unyielding. "But we don't hide it. This is our space, and we fix what's wrong." Noor, now an organizer alongside her daughter, brought a cloth and cleaning spray. Victor stood, surprising even himself, and joined her, scrubbing the marker until the words faded. "This isn't right," he said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "This fair is for everyone: cleaners, students, retirees. No one gets to draw lines here." He turned to Priya, whose eyes were wet but defiant. "Your app is brilliant. I'm funding 100 scholarships for kids like you, starting today." The crowd murmured, then erupted in cheers. Priya wiped her face, managing a faint smile as Aisha hugged her. whispering something that made her nod. The moment wasn't just about defiance, it was a turning point. Victor's announcement wasn't planned, but Aisha's steady gaze had pushed him to act, to put his wealth where his apology had been. Back at Tan Innovations, his CFO, Daniel Lim, was less enthusiastic, his voice tight over a video call later that evening. Scholarships? Victor? Shareholders want margins, not gestures. What's the ROI on this? Victor didn't flinch, his mind still on the blinking light, the defaced poster, the faces in the room. Measure retention, innovation, and applicant quality in 6 months, he said. The talent's here, Daniel, not in your boardroom charts. You'll see. The fair continued, undeterred. Aisha led a live demo, her chatbot translating a hawker's greeting into 3 languages, the screen glowing as the crowd clapped. Mr. Go's bus app synced with real-time data, earning a nod from a Tan Innovations engineer. The cleaner's son explained his solar lamp, its light steady despite its makeshift parts. Victor, still clutching his Raspberry Pi, felt the room's energy shift something inside him. He wasn't the tycoon here, he was a learner, his notebook now smudged with ink and possibility. At the fair's close, Aisha gathered the volunteers, Mr. Ravi, Miss Lin, a young engineer named Wei, for a debrief. "We've started something," she said, "but it's not enough to show projects. We need to build paths." She proposed weekly workshops, funded by Tan Innovations, to teach coding, robotics, and languages to anyone who showed up. Victor nodded, adding, "And career tracks for service workers, cleaners, guards, they deserve a shot at tech roles." The volunteers agreed, their faces lit with purpose. As the crowd dispersed, Noor and Aisha hung the defaced poster back up, now cleaned but with faint marker stains. They added a caption in bold letters, "Marked, mended, remembered." It wasn't just a poster, it was a promise, a reminder that prejudice could be faced and repaired, but never erased from memory. Victor lingered, his notebook open to a new Tamil phrase, Arivu, wisdom. He showed it to Aisha, who smiled faintly. "Better. Next week, conjugate verbs, and bring a plan for those scholarships." Victor nodded, the weight of her words settling in. Outside, Jurong streets hummed with life hawkers packing up, buses rumbling, kids laughing as they spilled out of the center. The skyline glittered, but the real light came from this concrete hall, where a 3-year-old girl had turned a tycoon's wealth into a spark for a community that had long been told to stay in its lane. Victor walked to his car, his driver waiting. But for the first time, he noticed the man's name tag, Kumar. "Kumar," Victor said, testing the word. "Thank you." The driver blinked, then nodded, a small gesture that felt like a step. Mondays. Tamilushist System. Tamil lesson. The community center was alive with the hum of ambition, its concrete walls echoing with the sounds of clicking keyboards, whirring 3D printers, and the chatter of a diverse crowd hawkers, students, retirees gathered for the Jurong Tech Fair. Aisha, a 13-year-old Malay girl with a frayed backpack and polished shoes, stood at the center, her voice ringing clear as she declared, "Today, we code, we communicate, we create." The fair was her vision, born from a challenge to Victor Tan, the tech tycoon whose gleaming headquarters towered over Singapore. After stunning him with her fluency in 9 languages and her translation of an ancient multilingual scroll, Aisha had demanded he fund this event free workshops to teach coding and languages to those usually locked out by wealth or status. Tables showcased ingenuity, a solar lamp by a cleaner's son, a bus tracking app by a retiree, a multilingual chatbot Aisha built herself. Victor, no longer the untouchable CEO, sat at the back, scribbling Tamil phrases in a notebook, stumbling over Vanakkam under Aisha's patient correction. "Push the second syllable," she said, her tone kind but firm. He was a student now, his $50,000 watch irrelevant in this room where talent outshone money. The fair pulsed with possibility. Aisha darted between tables, explaining Python loops to a grandmother in Mandarin, debugging an Arduino with a teen in Malay, greeting a hawker in Thai. Her words Nandri Shukran Kop, Kunmad everyone feels seen. Victor's Summit Club peers scoffed at his charity stunt. But here he saw raw potential. Priya, a 15-year-old cleaner's daughter, displayed a menu translation app. Mr. Go, a retired driver, showed his bus app. Aisha's chatbot switched seamlessly between Tamil, Mandarin, and English, drawing gasps. Then, a Jolt Priya's poster was defaced with black marker. Stay in your lane. The crowd hushed. Aisha stepped forward unshaken. We clean it, but we don't hide it. This is our space. Noor, her mother and fair organizer, brought cleaning supplies. Victor joined them, scrubbing the words away, his voice loud. This fair is for everyone. I'm funding 100 scholarships for kids like Priya, starting today. Cheers erupted. Priya, eyes wet but defiant, smiled as Aisha hugged her. Victor's CFO, Daniel Lim, balked at the cost. Shareholders want margins, not gestures. Victor countered, measure retention, innovation in 6 months. Talent's here, not in boardrooms. The fair resumed. Aisha's chatbot translating live, Mr. Go's app syncing perfectly, the cleaner's son's lamp glowing steady. Victor coded a blinking light on a Raspberry Pi, earning a kid's clap. At the close, the defaced poster was reframed. Marked, mended, remembered. Aisha handed Victor homework verb conjugations and a scholarship plan. The community center, not his skyscraper, was where innovation began. Its concrete walls holding more promise than his glass tower. Word count. Approximately 300 for this sample. I'll pause to ensure alignment with your vision. The full chapter would expand on the fair's impact, Aisha's leadership, Victor's growing humility, and the community's response to the defaced poster, weaving in new interactions and challenges to keep it distinct from Chapter 1. Let me know if you want me to proceed with the full 10,000-plus characters or adjust the direction. The headquarters of TAN Innovations no longer loomed as a cold monolith over Singapore's skyline. Its 68th floor had shed its jade dragon sculpture and rosewood panels, replaced by a round wooden table that seemed to breathe warmth into the once sterile space. Photos now lined the walls. Mr. Ravi, scribbling Tamil verbs on a whiteboard. Miss Lin guiding a teen through a Python script. Noor leading a workshop with a clipboard in hand, her Navy security uniform swapped for a blazer. At the table's center sat Aisha, now 13, her faded backpack resting by her feet, her eyes scanning a document titled 3-Step Code. Name right, listen fully, build together. This code, born from her lessons at the Jurong Community Center, was now etched into TAN Innovations culture, posted in every meeting room, break area, and lobby. The Aisha Rahim Foundation for Digital Equity, launched with Victor Tan's $300 million personal endowment, stood as an independent entity, with Noor as deputy director and a board of community leaders, teachers, workers, and scholars who ensured its mission stayed true. The foundation had seeded tech hubs in 15 Singapore neighborhoods, offering free coding, robotics, and language classes, with service workers like cleaners and guards earning certifications, their study hours logged as professional development. Victor, no longer the untouchable tycoon, sat at the table as a board member, not chair. His notebook open to Tamil conjugations, his pen pausing as Aisha spoke. This isn't about one company, she said, her voice steady as ever. It's about a city learning to see its people. The room nodded, from Noor to Wei, a young engineer who'd once scoffed but now volunteered at hubs. The code's simplicity: name people correctly, listen without defensiveness, build opportunities together, had reshaped TAN Innovations, reducing turnover by 35% and boosting applications by 50%, numbers that silenced skeptics like CFO Daniel Lim. The foundation's impact was on display at a public forum in the National Library, a glass-walled hall packed with workers, students, and media. Aisha took the stage, her sneakers squeaking faintly, her hoodie tied around her waist. "Equity means tools that fit the user," she said, her words clear, unhurried. "We train, we listen, we grow." A hawker named Mr. Tan, no relation to Victor, shared how his son's inventory app, built at a hub, had doubled his stall's efficiency. A guard, now a safety coordinator, described mastering Python at night classes, his first script automating shift schedules. Victor followed, no longer hiding behind polished speeches. He presented data: safety incidents down 40%, internal satisfaction up 15 points, recruitment costs halved due to retention. "Trust builds profit," he said, his voice low but firm. "Measure that." The crowd murmured approval, but not everyone was convinced. Outside, protesters waved signs. "Elites don't code with cleaners." A business blog headlined, "Tan's woke experiment tanks stock," citing a 3% dip. Inside, a rival CEO, Richard Coe from the Summit Club, stood during Q&A, his tone sharp. "Victor, this is PR fluff. Why bet on unproven talent?" Aisha responded before Victor could, her gaze steady. "Come to a hub, Mr. Coe. See the apps, the robots, the people. Then judge." Coe sat silent, but later slipped into a hub session, leaving with a promise to fund one in his own firm. The forum wasn't just a showcase, it was a battleground for ideas, where Aisha's clarity cut through cynicism like a blade. Back at Tan Innovations, the three-step code-face tests. A manager, flustered in a meeting, snapped at a cleaner-turned trainee. "Stick to mopping, not coding." The room froze, but the trainee, a young woman named City, followed the code. 1. My name is City. 2. Your words make me feel small, but I debugged that script you praised. 3. Join me at the hub to see what we build. The manager, red-faced, attended a session, later apologizing in a team email. The code wasn't a slogan, it was a tool, turning slights into corrections. Yet resistance lingered outside. A late-night talk show mocked, "Tan's training cleaners to code? Next, they'll run his board." Protesters outside a hub chanted, "Keep tech for techies." Aisha, undeterred, invited critics to a workshop. "Bring your doubts," she said, "but stay for the work." A skeptic, a tech columnist, joined and watched a retiree code a traffic app. He wrote a grudging column. "Maybe Tan's onto something." The foundation's first graduation saw 80 workers, cleaners, guards, drivers, earn tech certifications. Noor handed out diplomas, pronouncing each name with care, her voice steady despite tears in her eyes. A Dominican driver choked up, "My son saw my name on a certificate. He called me a hero." The auditorium, no LED screens or pomp, erupted in applause, the sound of shoes on wood louder than any corporate cheer. Victor faced market pressure. A major client, a retail chain, hesitated to renew, citing Victor's social activism. His team arrived with data, not gloss. Error rates down 20%, response times faster, NPS up. "We invest in trust," Victor said. "If you want cheap, we're not your fit. If you want resilience, we are." The client renewed, swayed by logic, not pity. Inside Tan Innovations, meetings shifted to round tables, no podiums, each ending with 3 written commitments per the code. A manager scoffed initially, but 3 weeks later, meeting times dropped 18%. Tasks resolved faster. Daniel Lim chuckled, "Calling things by their right names saves time." An incident tested the code's strength. A Slack meme mocked Aisha's chatbot, captioned, "Prodigy for hire. Cheap, Traced to an intern, discipline followed 2 weeks suspension. 3 hub sessions, a 1,000-word reflection co-written with Aisha on microaggressions. The intern, voice shaking, apologized publicly. I thought it was funny. I see the hurt now. The reflection became onboarding material, spreading the code's logic. Aisha's vision grew. She proposed a national network, linking libraries, hubs, and firms for open tech education. No logos, just names, she insisted. Universities like NUS and NTU signed on, offering credits for hub classes. Professors taught at libraries, calling it campus without gates. A literature professor noted, "We debate ideas in lecture halls. Here, ideas become people." Media softened. The blog that once sneered published a correction. Tan's hubs show measurable impact. Beneficiaries spoke louder. A Malay mother wrote, "I coded my first app. My daughter said, 'IBU, you're cool.' At Tan Innovations, name tags now included phonetic spellings, mispronunciations down sharply. A supplier in Johor adopted the code, reporting lower turnover. Aisha, still 13, carried her backpack to hub sessions, correcting Victor's Tamil tones. Asked by a reporter, "Who do you want to be?" she said, "Someone who gets the work done, no title needed." One evening, Aisha and Noor walked home, a car slowing beside them. "Smart girl, stay small!" A voice sneered before speeding off. Aisha pulled a card from her backpack, her handwriting neat. "Knowledge opens doors, not cages." Noor squeezed her hand. "You're enough," Aisha nodded. "We're building." At the next hub, Victor struggled with Tamil verbs, Aisha correcting gently. Tones matter, so does trying. The Foundation's board met in the round table room, Victor stepping down his chair. "Noor leads now," he said. "I'm a member." Noor reviewed policies, living wages, transparent evaluations, community input. Aisha rehung the defaced poster from the fair, its faint stains kept. Marked, mended, remembered. At a scholarship ceremony, Victor spoke briefly, per Aisha's edits. "I misread wealth as power. A girl in a hub taught me wisdom is seeing people right. Thank you, Aisha, Noor, Ravi, Lynn." Scholars pitched expansions hubs in Penang, Jakarta. Aisha's checklist was strict. Partner libraries, local teachers, no corporate branding. That night, Victor wrote in his notebook, "Wealth lifts others, wisdom sees them. The stain reminds us to keep looking." Singapore's skyline glowed, but the warmest light came from a concrete hub, where a girl's voice taught a city to build together.